What's going on, people? Welcome back to Good Morning Tottenham. Welcome back to We Are Tottenham TV. And we've got the preview show today for the Brighton game tomorrow at the Amex. Big game, as they always are. When you're looking at the two sides now, Spurs really inconsistent, consistently inconsistent.
Yeah, very consistent, actually.
Consistently inconsistent. Brighton, on the other hand, they are consistently bad very recently. 5 games, 5 losses. And now it's up steps Dr. Tottenham, doesn't it?
Exactly. You kind of don't want to be playing them on the back of 5 losses because you just know that every game they're trying something new to change things in there, and they might spring a surprise. They might change things in a way which we don't expect. And that's something I am worried about going to the game tomorrow, because I know Brighton can play good football. I know that they team who have a set way of playing. They can play with a back 3 or a back 4. Under Graham Potter, they've got good systems in place, and of late it's gone really bad for them. They've lost more games in the past 5 games than they did in the rest of the season. They only lost like 4, I think, in the first half of the season with a lot of draws.
Yeah, and
now they lost 5 in a row, so they really dropped off a cliff. But doesn't mean that coming into the game on Wednesday that it means it's going to be an easy game, because they can always come up with something, a different tactical system. They can always liable to switch it up at some places and catch us off guard. That's what I'm a bit worried about. But hopefully we come into it with the feeling that we have to win to stay in the top 4 race.
There's a few reasons to be worried. I mean, I'm always apprehensive and worried about coming up against teams that are on like long losing streaks. It's got to end somewhere, doesn't it? And with Brighton, we always get a hard game at the Amex. But the way Brighton play their football, is it going to play into our hands a little bit?
Should do, because I think they're going to probably want to be on the front foot to try and turn things around. I don't think the run they're on, to be honest, even a draw though stops the rot, doesn't it? And they're not really in fear of relegation, so maybe they'll think like, okay, let's just battle as hard as we can to get a point, and then we can move on from there, because they've got Man City coming up next. So if they lose this, they could be on 7 losses in a row after next game. But in theory, the way they play football should benefit us, because they like to press pretty high. They like to play a bit of possession-based football. They can be caught if we press them like we did in the FA Cup. So I feel like it should really benefit us, to be honest, how they play. But if they come up with a new way of playing, because Potter's a very good tactician, and you can see when things are not working. I know he's not been great in past 5 matches, but he's got a way of switching up and turning things around and surprising people. And I'm worried he's going to come up with something in this game which could surprise us. Yeah,
definitely. When you're looking at, well, just before we look at that, I mean, another thing to worry about is, it's very evident under Conte so far, when we only have a few days to prepare for a game, we don't do well. Obviously, that Man United game, we had a week to prepare. We lost the game, but, some say we played fairly well. This Brighton
It wasn't due to lack of energy that we lost. You can see that.
Yeah. And it was due to one man.
You can see other games, Burnley and Borough, we didn't have any energy in those games. But
so
I think
are you expecting that the same to be against Brighton? Are you worried about that, only having a few days to prepare?
Yeah, it's a worry. It's a worry. They also played, though, on the Saturday, didn't they? So there hasn't been too much difference in terms of rest days. But yeah, that is a concern, because we have looked far worse whenever we haven't had days prepared. It's not like we've never won a game when we've played in midweek. We have. So hopefully this can be one of those occasions. But for sure, more often than not, when we haven't had the right preparation time, that's been to our detriment. But hopefully Saturday to Wednesday, that should be enough time. But then you got West Ham, and I'm more worried about the West Ham game, to be honest, in the game in midweek in terms of preparation. But then again, they have Sevilla on Thursday, don't they? So that should be a difficult one for them. But we can't use it as an excuse, because they've had the same preparation time. So that can't be something we look at and say, oh, that's why we lost. It's not an excuse in any way. It's just been the case, hasn't it, that whenever we've had midweek games, we've struggled. But that's down to the manager has to take responsibility for that. The players have to take responsibility for that. That's not an excuse. That's just reality. But in this midweek, I think we still should have enough to put in a performance.
historically, the Amex a hard place for us to go. Last 2 times we've been there, we've lost 3-0 and 1-0 without scoring a goal. What do you put that down to? Why do we always struggle when we go to the Amex?
We've lost 3-0 and 1-0 last 2 times. Last season under Mourinho, we didn't have a striker, I remember. I remember no Son, no Kane, I think, for that game, and we struggled badly.
Yeah, the time before that was that Lloris injury on the last few games of
that
the
was
Pochettino
that
era.
was right at the end of the Pochettino era. So I wouldn't, like, at home we've been pretty consistent against them, haven't we? I think the season before that, even at the Amex, we won. I think Lamela scored. We won 2-1. I wouldn't put it down to anything. I think just Brighton are a fairly good team and the past couple. And I remember that the game when we lost 3-0, they battered us that game. That was a real show of what Potter's tactics can do in that against a team that aren't on it. I think last season they won 1-0, but it was a very nothing game. Like they got an early goal and we just couldn't score. We just had no firepower. So I think they're a good team and they caught us on a bad day twice. But I wouldn't say it means anything for this game, in my opinion.
When you're looking at the last game we played against them at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in the FA Cup under Conte, we played much better than them that game. I think we played them off the park pretty much, but there was one player that really stood out in Basuma. I mean, he really did stand out. And how much do we have to look out for him tomorrow night?
Yeah, Basuma is a tricky player. He's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of technical ability. He's got a brilliant long shot. He is the one player in the central midfield where he can dominate. He pretty much did a lot of the time in the game against Brighton. I can't remember who started in the centre. Was it Skip? Oh, Skip fit back then. I can't remember. I know Højbjerg definitely did. I'm trying to remember if it was Skip or Winks or I don't think Bentancur was there.
No, Bentancur and Kulu came on.
That's right. Bentancur came on.
Wasn't it?
So it must have been Winks who started. Unless
I've got a feeling it might have been Skip.
Unless Skip was fit. He's a very tricky player.
It was Winks and Højbjerg, and then Bentancur came on for Winks in the latter stages.
Yeah. So he's one, definitely, if we're not careful, he can dominate the midfield. That's the truth, because he's so powerful and he's quite good when he gets to the final third as well. But usually his partner isn't at the same level. So hopefully that's something, if we can just concentrate our efforts and make sure Basuma doesn't run the game in the centre mid, we can get a lot of joy there. But yeah, he's a fantastic player and one who would probably get into our team.
When they came to that, in that game, they played a 3 at the back, packed the midfield with 3 in midfield, and played a 3-5-1-1 kind of thing with Moda just behind Morpie. Do you expect them to go 3 at the back and match us up again? And maybe overrun us in midfield with pack the midfield?
I'm trying to look at their past few games because they past 4 of the last 5 games, they've gone with a 4 at the back. So definitely they're trying to switch up. Against Villa at home, they went back to a 3, but they still end up losing. So they're trying a lot of things and they're not winning. If they go with if what's on screen now is what they go with, then that definitely advantage us, because Gross and McAllister are not the most hard-working players in terms of off the ball, and they can definitely be ones who can be physically dominated and bullied in the central midfield. So I would definitely rather that. If they go with a 3 at the back though, and maybe with Basuma at a different centre mid, then it's a bit trickier. It'll be a bit more of a struggle to. It'll be definitely a bit more of a struggle to get at them. But with that 4 at the back, I think we should be licking our lips, to be honest.
Do you think they will actually go for that? I think, Potter's very...
That's what they went for last, because Lallana got injured. But he came on, didn't he? If that's what they went for last time against Liverpool, then, I don't know, it'll be interesting to see. I think if he's clever, he'll probably go with 3 at the back.
That's what I'm saying. Liverpool are a very hard team to play against. You don't know how to really play against them if you're a Brighton side. But if coming up against the Spurs side, I mean, the blueprint is there of how to beat us. You sit back, let us have the ball, and ask questions of us and see if we can ask questions of the other team. And most times or not, we can't. So surely Potter looks at that and adjusts his tactics for this game.
Yeah, but the thing is, when we're playing against a team like Burnley, they're drilled to do that. That's how they play. Brighton are not. So if they're asked to sit back and defend, and when they're not used to doing that, that's a risk that he has to it's a risk that he has to take if he feels like that's the best way to play against us. But then you're sacrificing how you've been training the whole season to play to come into this game because you think Tottenham struggle. I don't think he will, Potter. I think Potter has a way of playing, he has a philosophy, and I don't think he's going to come into this game thinking, let's just sit back and backs against the wall and try and get and get them on the counter. That's not usually how he does things. I think he's going to continue. Look, by hook or by crook, they could go on a really bad run. They're on a bad run at the moment, and they could get worse between now and the end of the season. But I think he's going to stand by his principles. That's the manager he is. That's what I see of Potter. He doesn't seem one who goes against his principles usually.
If I was in Potter's shoes, that's exactly what I would do, because I think that's the way to beat Tottenham. And I think if they come at us, they'll know that we can pick them off with Kulusevski, Kane, Son, Bentancur and Højbjerg in the middle, acting as the strong technicians in the middle. And I think that they'll know that we can pick them off. And I really hope they do come at us and play the Brighton way, because I think that's the way we're going to win this game. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. But if they sit back as well, who's to say that Kane or Son or whatever can't come up with something? I know that we haven't, but I think Burnley are probably a better team at sitting back than Brighton. I think other teams who have done it against us, I think Brighton's defenders, like as a unit, are not that strong. And I think they definitely are a unit that are not watertight. So whether they want to rely on players sitting back, I don't know. I don't know whether they want to do that, or they feel like if they go at us, sometimes we've had a bit of... sometimes when we get pressed as well, we can be a bit... we can get found out a bit occasionally. So maybe he'll feel like that's the best way. When it's just got, they train a certain way of playing for a reason. So that sometimes you've got to stand by that, whether it's working or not, in a way.
Yeah, fair enough.
I hope he does, yeah.
Some of the players to look out for Brighton. I mean, we had that graphic on screen just a second ago. Neil Maupay getting 9 goals this season, but they really don't score that many goals, Brighton. I mean, for the way they play their football, they should really be getting more goals than they do, don't they?
One goal in the last 5.
Yeah.
XGFC. To be honest, in the first part of the season, they were doing quite well. They won 6 of their first 7 games of the season, which is incredible when you think about it. They were doing really well, and I still think during a large part of the season they weren't winning games. They went a long stretch. They went 9 games without a win, but only 2 losses in there. A lot of draws. But they've struggled. They haven't really improved their front line, have they? Since last season. Last season they massively underperformed in their XG. They created really good chances, but they weren't able to put them back in the net. They haven't improved really their front line. They've still got the same players, pretty much in the forward line. So what do you expect? Maybe over a short period they can get a boost like they did earlier in the season when they're playing well. But when the goals dry up, maybe the players start to lose belief in what and how they're playing, because the same thing keeps happening every single time. But I don't think it's because of Potter. I think it's the players implementing his system. He's trying his best. I don't think he can get any more out of them as he can. Look, they're Brighton. They're 13th. If you ask Brighton at the beginning of the season, you're going to be 13th in March. They probably wouldn't have. They probably would have taken that. You know what I mean?
Well, you say that, but a few months ago they were booing the Brighton team off the pitch after a few.
That's because they won. That's because they won 6 of their first 7.
Yeah.
When you get to that point, and then all of a sudden you drop off, then you're like, okay, we're clearly.
How ridiculous was that, though?
It was a joke. That was a while ago. They booed when they drew 0-0 to Leeds. They booed them off, and the Potter turned around and was like, they're booing. What's going on? We played really well today, and they're booing. I think maybe those fans would probably argue, look what's happening now, 5 defeats in a row, and they could see it coming. But I don't know what they expect. They're not a team that. Although I think Potter signed a 5-year contract like a couple of years ago, showing that they want to continue with him in the long term, they're not a team that's going to be challenging for Europe anytime soon, unless they massively overperform. A bit like how we were only in Champions League because we massively overperformed for a few years. We couldn't keep up, and I feel like they're not going to, unless they get really great recruitment. Like they're always liable to lose some of their best players as well, aren't they? So it's a difficult job for Potter. To keep up the standards that he's set already. And I think he's doing a great job, even though they're struggling at the moment.
Where do you think Graham Potter, obviously I know you're a big fan of Graham Potter, very good manager, but where do you think his career path will take him? How much of a big club will he get in his next job, do you reckon? What kind of calibre of club?
Well, I was going to say if I was Everton, I'd snap him up and get rid of Lampard, but I don't think that's an option right now. I don't know if he'll stay at Brighton for too much longer, maybe another season if they stay up. But I think he should be looking at. I don't know if he's.
I'd look to leave Brighton this summer if I was Potter. I think
it's about what jobs available. Villa just got the Gerrard in. Lampard just got. Everton just got Lampard in. So if you're looking for a step up from Brighton, who is there? Wolves have a good manager at the moment in Bruno Laga. I mean, if Conte leaves, could he go Spurs? Like, I don't think. Hopefully, Conte doesn't leave. West Ham are pretty settled with Moyes. Newcastle, Howe's doing a good job there. Maybe Leicester, if Rodgers leaves at the end of the season. That could be something. That could be something.
That's a good shout. I think that would be a good fit.
That could be a decent fit, actually. I think. Definitely, if I was him, he would have to try his best to remain in the Premier League. Although he is a manager who went out to Sweden to manage, didn't he? So he's not adverse to going abroad and doing a job. But the jobs at the moment are not really there. Apart from maybe Leicester at the end of the season, there are not many jobs which you say are up for grabs because everyone just recently got a new manager and are trying to find their way. If Conte does leave, I think we should consider him. If we're looking. But I think would
you take him over Pochettino?
I don't know if I'd take him over Poch, but what I would say is, if let's say things really go to shit from now to the end of the season, and Kane leaves and we need a massive rebuild, I would not be against giving that to Potter. I think Potter is the one who could get a lot out of the players that we have. In terms of getting us to overperform and getting us to play a system, a philosophy that could take us through a rebuild, basically. So I would be pretty confident with that. Obviously, I want Conte to stay, and I think I'll probably rather Poch as well come back because I just think the feel-good factor that him coming back and the quality he has would stand us in good stead. But I think Potter would definitely be a candidate for me if Conte was to leave. I don't know if Spurs board would actually consider him, but I hope they would because I think he'd be a good candidate.
In terms of the way we're going to set up, are you just expecting exactly the same unchanged team? I mean, what else can we do? Really?
Yeah, I know. Obviously, Reguilon has to play, doesn't he? Because Session's injured. I hope maybe there's one or two changes. Like maybe we bring in like Emerson just to freshen things up to make sure we're not going through again these stale performances. Maybe bring in Lucas Moura up front to just keep some energy. Because at the moment,
Kula's been performing.
I'm not saying he's not, but sometimes you just have to. Look, Kulu will still be on the bench. He can come on. Like sometimes you have to make a few changes just to keep the energy levels high. Because at the moment, the way we're playing when we play 2 games a week, the energy levels just seem so low. Yeah. Whenever we come into games, and we've got unchanged a few times now, and we can't replicate the performances we get on from the weekend. It's just happened enough times now to say we probably need a bit of rotation. Would I consider putting Son on the bench from the start? I mean. Maybe because he was really lacking it on Saturday, and we have a massive game against West Ham coming up on the weekend. And we did play without Son against West Ham in the cup, didn't we? With Bergwijn and Lucas, and we played quite well that game.
Really well that game, didn't
so maybe it is time to give Bergwijn a shout with Kane up top, maybe for this game. I think we should make without losing the structure of the team, try and make a few changes just to give some people a chance and keep up the energy levels, because I feel like if we go unchanged again, then that would worry me a bit because it's just we've happened so many times.
But then on the flip side of that, if Son doesn't start and we lose, and then Arsenal go and lose to Liverpool, a massive missed opportunity. And then everyone's going to be after going, why didn't we start Son? Obviously, we're going to lose if we don't start Son.
I think he will start Son, but it's a risk. But at the moment, we need to. We also, if we go unchanged and we lose again, then you got to think we could have seen that coming. I think sometimes just a few changes. I know that the quality we have coming in isn't as good, but maybe in this game we can afford just a couple of changes just to freshen things up a bit, because I'm worried that the energy levels are again going to be low if we start with an unchanged team, because we did put a lot of effort in, I felt, against United. So we'll see. I mean, I would probably make a couple of changes. I'll probably bring in one of Lucas or Bergwijn, and probably bring in Emerson on the right-hand side. I don't think I'll change the centre mids. I don't think we can change Reguilon, and I wouldn't change any of the back three. So I think those are the changes I would make. But he'll probably go unchanged, knowing Conte.
Probably. All right, so what's your score prediction?
I'm going to go 2-0.
2-0 Spurs. Who's going to score?
Going to go 2-0. Kane's going to get one as always, and one of... Kane's going to get 2. Screw it.
All right, you're going 2-0. I'm going to go 2-1. I think we will concede to this Brighton side. I know they're not scoring many goals at the moment, but I think they'll come into this game thinking they can get something of it, and I think it's going to be a very difficult game. I really believe that. Obviously, our record at the Amex isn't too great, 2 losses in the last 2 games, so I'm going to go for us to sneak a 2-1 win. With the goals, I'm going to go for 1 for Kane and 1 for Decky, 1 for Kulusevski. So that's my score prediction. I want to know you guys' score predictions in the comment section below. Let me know how you think the game will go, but that is our match preview.